Hey there everyone, welcome back to Utility Sports. Really excited for today's video in a big time breakdown on Derik Queen. This is about as thorough as you can possibly get on an individual prospect, and I really wanted to focus on Derik Queen specifically in this video because I am extremely high on Derik Queen as a prospect. If you watch my most recent big board video, you will know that I have him currently ranked third in the entire 2025 NBA draft class, and I feel like I have a lot of great reasons, a lot of film that backs up my analysis there, and I wanted to share it with you guys today. So if you do enjoy, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I hope I can put a lot of you onto the Derik Queen bandwagon, hype train, whatever you want to call it, because I am buying real estate on Derik Queen Island. So when it comes to Derik Queen specifically as a prospect, I think there are a ton of unique skills, traits, movement patterns, coordination, balance, a lot of little things that go into what make Derik Queen special. And we got to see that in some big moments this year, hitting game winners, having some elite stretches of play for Maryland this past year, and really carrying them on his back for certain stretches. Now, he did have some other talent around him, played alongside a back-to-the-basket big in Julian Reese. There's a lot of little nuance into possible lineup constructions that can work around Derik Queen in the NBA. We'll, of course, talk about that throughout the course of this video, but I think one of the best places to start with Derik Queen, while the eye test, the skills clearly pop when you watch the tape, we do need to talk about the numbers, specifically looking at what he was able to do this past year from a production standpoint. And the production was quite good. In 30 minutes per game, did average nearly a double-double, 16.5 points, 9 rebounds per game. Remember, Maryland's very first game of the year against Manhattan, Derik Queen's college debut, he put up an incredible 22-point, 20-rebound performance in what really became a staple and kind of a precursor to what the season ultimately was for Derik Queen, which was a very strong one. Now you look at that assist to turnover number there. He did have a 0.79 assist to turnover rate, just 1.9 assists to 2.4 turnovers per game. I think that's a very misleading statistic right there for a number of reasons. We're going to start with the turnovers. Derik Queen was whistled for a lot of travels this year, specifically on his spin moves and on his gathers on those spin moves. We'll look at some of his bag work later in this video, but my thoughts overall on his gathers and travel calls specifically that led to a decent amount of turnovers this year, those aren't going to be called in the NBA, especially not with the freedom of movement that the NBA allows players with the ball to play with. I don't think Derik Queen is going to be whistled for too many travels in his NBA career, and I do think that turnover number will scale down just a little bit. And I also think that assist number is misleading. I think he is way more capable of averaging 4 or 5 assists per game in the NBA compared to that 1.9 assist number he had at Maryland. I think better spacing, a better overall team around him will really accelerate and elevate his assist numbers in a big way. He is extremely talented as a passer. We'll, of course, look at that, and I think there's a lot left on the bone that Maryland wasn't able to capitalize on. A majority of his scoring volume this year did come from two-point land, over 10 two-point attempts per game compared to just 1 3-point attempt, and he did not have a ton of success on those tray balls. Made just 1 for every 5 attempts with that 20% three-point percentage. I think that free throw percentage is another good precursor indicator for some real shooting growth that we have yet to see for Derik Queen, who is a bit older as a true freshman, will be 20 and a half years old at the day of the draft. So he's not this young spry freshman, but he is still obviously very young in the grand scheme of NBA basketball. You get into some of his advanced numbers. We talked about the assist turnover numbers, not really too worried there. Very interesting defensive profile, over 2% steal rate and a near 4% block rate. Not your typical rim protector. Again, we'll get into the film that showcases that. Pretty respectable rebounding rate, just a bit shy of where someone like Kamen Maluwatch is in this draft. So while Queen isn't your typical huge big man, stands at just 6'9.25" without shoes on, so he's a true 6'10" center. He gets on the glass. He's active, especially in the offensive glass. I think there's a lot to work with there. Now, one thing that I really do think stands out to me, his true shooting percentage remained very high this year despite not shooting the 3-ball well. And the reason why is he gets to the free throw line a lot. A 54.6% free throw rate very impressive. And I think, again, this is a testament to his ability to handle the rock. We'll look at film later that suggests that, but I want you guys to remember this number specifically: 54.6% free throw rate. Remember that. We'll come back to it later. And then one of the biggest things with Queen, had a very high usage rate, 26.6% usage, exactly what you'd expect for a 5-star freshman. So now let's jump into some of that actual skill set that we want to talk about. And I think the first place to go is that face-up game, what is going to be a huge threat for him. And one of the things that has me most excited about his NBA career is his ability to play off of delay action, play out of the top of the key, isolate him against matchups. And if you do envision him playing the center spot specifically in his NBA career, this is where he will have a matchup advantage from his explosion and first step for his size, measured in at over 240 pounds at the NBA Combine, but he moves like he's about 220. Very, very quick on his feet, agile, explosive, and athletic laterally and downhill, and I think you're going to see that here in this clip specifically. A very nice rocker step out of the triple threat, gets to the rim with ease on a clean blow-by, and again, he's also not small, so with that weight, he's able to take advantage of some of the smaller matchups. So if you're thinking about playing him at the 4, he can use his touch, skill, finesse against 5s, but against 4s, he can play into their body, play through traffic, get to the free throw line. We talked about that free throw rate. And he can just face up, shoot over the top of you if you put a smaller guy on him as well. There's a lot of value here. As soon as he gets downhill and drives the basketball, he's extremely strong, has very good contact balance, is able to maintain his drives. And then once he gets going a little bit, if he does develop that three-point shot, is able to step out behind the three-point line more consistently, get guys to bite on that pump fake, get all the way to the rim. There is a lot of talent to work with. And again, I think a lot of it comes down to his ability to gather the basketball, maintain driving lanes, get to where he wants to go on the floor, and do a lot out of the face-up game. And this really stands out in his bag work as well. This is one of my favorite clips in transition. Gets a rebound and go. We'll look at this clip a little bit later on when we talk about his passing. But in terms of his overall bag, he loves that spin move. Again, does get whistled for it. This time he misses, but gets to the free throw line. One of the most important things to remember too, this one a great one where he's able to gather, bump his defender off of him, and get to the cup uncontested. And I think for Derik Queen specifically, one of the most important things to remember here, even on clips where the ball might not go in the specific clip I'm showing you, or in moments where he gets fouled instead of scores naturally, we are looking at the process, we are looking at the skills that lead up to results. At the end of the day, people super fixate on results. Those advanced numbers, all the numbers I showed you earlier talk about the results, what happened on the play, what happened at the end of the play. But if you really want to know what is happening on the court, and if a prospect's really good or not, you need to look at what's happening before the result even occurs and what sets up that result. And I think for Derik Queen specifically here, his talent is undeniable. Look at the gather step there, able to avoid a charge call. He is just a uniquely talented player. There he is taking on a guard. Misses this one, but again, you're trusting the process. I sound like a Philadelphia 76ers fan right now. His ability to get to certain spots on the court and then make plays with a live dribble. Look at that crossover, able to get 2 feet in the paint and finish above the rim. He is extremely talented, and one of the biggest reasons why I'm taking the bet on him as an overall player is his ability to gather, get through traffic, has a very unique handle and good downhill burst for his size. He becomes a unique mismatch nightmare, honestly, for most teams, because if you're going to try and put a 4 on him, there's a good chance Derik Queen's bigger, stronger than him, can shoot over the top of him. And then there's also the flip side of the coin where, hey, you want to put a 5 on him? Now we're going to stretch you out a little bit. You're pulling your rim protector away from the hoop. And by the way, R5's way quicker than yours if Derik Queen is playing center. So there's some huge advantages there. And again, against smaller matchups, here against Hummerkaus against Illinois, playing with his back to the basket, really good spin move, discards the defender, gets to his right hand very easily. Here he is on a baseline out of bounds play, goes up, gets the basketball, quick spin, and shows off that touch at the hoop as well. He is very adept with his back to the basket. Now, if you compare him to someone like Alperen Şengün, I do think Şengün coming out of Turkey was a much better back to the basket player, something he was very, very elite at coming from Turkey over to the NBA. Derik Queen is not quite at that level Alperen Şengün was at all. More of a face-up big man, if anything, but very experience still nonetheless, able to get to spots on the floor, likes this little post fade as well, especially if he can get his feet into the paint, kind of limit the distance on that shot. Here he has a turnover or a turnaround over the other shoulder. Let's go back to these last two sequences here again, because I do think this is important ones to look at. You look at the difference in quality, the difference in play type here. This one's going to his right shoulder on a leaner, gets that one to go, and then he comes back over, spins over his right shoulder this time toward his left hand, and then still able to get that one to go. So you're looking at a very skilled player. Again, not quite the back to the basket player that your typical traditional big men have been throughout, early 2000s basketball, and most recently Alperen Şengün is one of the better back to the basket bigs in recent NBA draft history. But he's still a very unique player, and this play specifically is the whoa play. We're going to start it over. I want you to watch this one, and I want you to put it to memory. This is the play that makes you go, what are we dealing with? He hits a post spin into an immediate gather spin again against the smaller defender, anticipating the cutoff. This is incredible stuff. One dribble for two spin moves. This is the type of, this is special. This is special, and that's something I typically don't say about a lot of prospects. This is special stuff. This is special coordination, contact balance. He's able to finish the play over the top of the defender as well at the rim. This is utilization of his size, skill, ability to get to certain spots on the floor, and really the combination of his handle, the combination of his finishing ability at the rim, the combination of his size, everything that makes Derik Queen comes to life in this one specific play against USC from earlier this year. One of my favorite plays from every prospect in this draft cycle. This is one of the most special plays you'll see all year long when it comes to an individual player in this draft class making an individual play. Just absolutely wonderful stuff. And then we go into his short roll scoring, and this is where you unlock a little bit more of that versatility that you're going to get from Derik Queen. Of course, we've talked a lot about his on-ball value and how he's been able to succeed, whether it be in isolation, showcasing some of that bag work, or winning out of post-ups with his back to the basket, or winning in that face-up game out of, delay action isolation or off the nail. Some of the areas where you see Joel Embiid working, for example, or Nikola Jokic, two of the best big men in today's NBA. This is what makes Derik Queen very viable in different team settings and contexts where, hey, maybe he isn't going to be the focal point every single night. Maybe he doesn't have the most elite matchup advantage if he's going against one of the best defending big men in the NBA. So what do? Well, you use him as a screener against drop coverage in the NBA, just kind of like what you're seeing here with Kylan Boswell playing in drop for Illinois in this situation. Get Derik Queen the ball at the free throw line. He can attack downhill, showcase that touch still, has that really good play strength. Here's an example again against drop coverage. Very good gather, avoids the initial defender from Nebraska, able to get all the way to the rim. Here's a handoff onto a short roll. Watch him just kind of carve out space, gets to the right spot on the floor, plays into traffic, plays into contact again, very balanced. These are all things that are going to be very sustainable. Now he catches the ball at the free throw line. If your drop coverage is too low here like it was for Purdue, he's catching and firing that thing. These are all very easy, good, clean possessions and looks for Maryland. And really at the end of it, when it comes down to trusting the process of your offensive results, you're going to get good shots with Derik Queen on the floor because of his ability to attack mismatches in certain ways, whether it be winning with foot speed, winning with his back to the basket, or winning when he's given space, which for Maryland wasn't a ton, but it did come often when he was in the short roll scenario. But what happens if he's short rolling and doesn't have a ton of space, doesn't have an immediate opportunity? Well, let's watch him here. Goes into a dribble handoff. This is, again, another wow play, an immediate touch pass out of the short roll to Julian Reese. Here's another short roll clip. This one, kind of hesitant, gets his defender up in the air, now sets things up. Hummerkaus helping too much. Lackadaisical, finds the wide open shooter. It's an air ball. Remember, I talked about earlier how the assist numbers aren't truly reflective on how good of a passer decision maker Derik Queen is. That's a reason why. He's making a brilliant pass to the strong side corner, doesn't actually convert for a basket here. Here he is again catching, live dribble, short roll, makes a perfect pass to the corner, no assist to show for it, but again, we're trusting the process. Here's another great kick out on a short roll. This one ultimately does net him an assist with the same process in mind. Another brilliant touch pass here on somewhat of a short roll, a little bit of a longer roll, but very unique passing skills This is one of the better short roll passers in the entire draft. I want to go back and show you guys just a couple of them one more time. This one specifically is my favorite one of his all year long as a short roller. This pass is just brilliant. The touch passing, the intelligence is all there. And we'll go back over to this clip as well. Another one I just want to showcase one more time. Catches it over the top of the defense and knows immediately where he's going to have that advantage. So his court processing, I think, is at a very good pace. Look at him hit the cutter here. A lot of very unique talent as a distributor. And we already talked a lot about the scoring, the face-up game, the bag work, his ability to handle the basketball at his size. With over a 9'1" standing reach, it's pretty rare to see a player that comfortable with the ball in his hands, both as a scorer, ball handler, and facilitator. And I think Derik Queen is just scratching the surface now on all of those elements of his game. And I think the ceiling is so high for so many reasons. Another thing that really stands out to me, his ambidexterity as a passer. Now, he is somewhat right-hand dominant as a finisher, specifically around the hoop, but he can really pass that basketball with his left hand, and he's comfortable doing it. Adds in a little bit of flair. Now, I do think he needs to tighten up some of the decisions in his game. There's going to be some growth there for sure, but look at some of the passes here with his left hand. Remember, that is his offhand, and he's making incredible reads. This one, watch how much attention Purdue is showing him in a very tight game. 6 minutes left to go in the game. 1 point game, 1 possession game. What's he going to do? Well, uses his size, passes over the top of the defense with his offhand to a wide open shooter. Doesn't go. Here he is, first game of the year. Drive toward the baseline, left-handed skip all the way across the court. That's a 27-foot pass where he throws it on a dime. Ultimately doesn't get the assist, but again, you're looking at the process, you're looking at the decision making, you're looking at what is ultimately setting up his team for success, and there's a lot of really unique stuff here that other bigs in this draft just do not have the skill set to pull off and actually utilize throughout the course of a game. This is not a one-off thing for Derik Queen. I'm not just showing you one clip of him passing the ball with his left hand. This is something he did frequently. He did it a ton, and he did it rather well for Maryland this past year too. I think there's a lot to work with. Again, this is one of those really special clips. Again, a very good pass, left-handed, right in the money, and then he gets back on the offensive glass as well from that 22-20 game he had earlier this year against Manhattan. Another fun area of his game, specifically, I told you guys we'd come back to this clip, is his role as a transition player, whether it be a transition creator or flat out someone who can also ignite breaks with his breakout passing and outlet passing. Here he is breaking a press against Illinois in the second half of that game, something he did multiple times for them and did it really quite well for the Maryland Terrapins all year long. His size, ability to pass the basketball, advance the ball is something that was very valuable for them. Look at this breakout pass on a steal. Perfect pass, creates an opportunity, doesn't become an assist because of the lack of talent around him at times, but he is creating easy opportunities for his teammates by throwing hit-ahead passes. This is very reminiscent for me of Kevin Love, someone who has been one of the best breakout passers in NBA history back when he was playing with Minnesota. And then, of course, that was really accentuated once he got to Cleveland playing with LeBron James. Using that athleticism, that transition play was very, very strong overall. Queen didn't just ignite breaks, though. He could also finish them. And this is where you get to see some of that offensive skill come back to life here as well when it comes to him having the ball with space in front of him, functioning in transition or functioning as a play finisher off of other passing. Gets ahead in transition here, has a mismatch as the teams are cross-matched. Forces a miss on Kasparas Jakučionis out in space. Now he's out and running in space against Jakučionis and finishes above the rim there. I think this is where you look at his finishing coordination. That's a really great catch on the move at high speeds. Very unique for a big man as well. He's just so much more fluid athletically and able to get out into space, make plays. This is another big moment in that Purdue game in the second half. Maryland was on a little bit of a dry spell at that point. They're able to get an easy basket in transition because of Queen's defensive activity and then his skill set to be able to go coast to coast with the basketball in his hands. Again, leveraging some of that size as a play finisher. Derik Queen, coordination shows up when he's on the offensive glass, able to stick with it. He does have that stick with itness that I think stands out in a big way for someone with his coordination, his ability to tap the ball up to himself. It's such an underrated little small thing, but I think it's one of the small things that will lead to extra chances, extra possessions, and extra points on the scoreboard for whichever team ultimately does draft Derik Queen in the 2025 NBA draft. Like some other big men we've seen in recent years, Queen does have some experience as a DHO hub. Now, I don't think he's the best DHO user. He's not, quite frankly, the best screen setter on some of these DHO actions, but there is a pretty significant advantage with Queen in DHO that some other bigs don't have, and it's the fact that he's such a dominant short roll force that it puts him in puts your defender in a really weird spot of, okay, how far can I leave Derik Queen? How comfortable am I leaving his body? Notice here, he goes to hand the basketball off. His man is still holding him, worried about letting him get to the rim, and it creates an easier driving lane. Again, a missed layup there, but again, watch Derik Queen's man here against Marquette. Scared to leave his body. As a result, it leads to a 1-on-0 finish. If we go back to the start of this clip again too, you're going to see that with Purdue here. They do ultimately help off of him a bit, but they're not really willing to be full committal help, and it allows his team to get on the offensive glass. Here he is again against Illinois. We looked at this clip earlier. This is his little short roll. This is where, again, out of DHO, with Hummerkaus in drop coverage here, this is where the value in the short roll becomes maximized as well off of DHO action. So again, I don't think Queen is the best dribble handoff user at all, but I do think his dribble pass shoot skill set, his ability to knock down mid-range jump shots, play out of the short roll, and be a scoring force creates different kinds of opportunities out of DHOs rather than just setting really good mean screens like someone like Kamen Maluwach does in this draft coming out of Duke. I do think just in general too, if you're selling yourself on Derik Queen as either a dribble handoff hub or someone who can just play make for your team off the top of the key, his ability to pass on back cuts is something that stands out to me. A couple really great ones here against Illinois to start things off. Very talented just processor of the court. Here's a high-low to his fellow big man Julian Reese, who's able to score against Hummerkaus down low. I think just all things considered, here he is against a double team, throwing the ball over the top. Just has good natural feel and instinct for where his teammates are, has really solid positional size. Here he's getting his man off the floor, throws a lob maybe a little bit too high. I think there's a lot to work with here from the playmaking perspective. Now, when it comes to playmaking precision, he is not a precise playmaker quite yet. And what I mean by that, as a passer, he's not hitting the doorknob, and he's definitely not hitting the keyhole with his passes. And I think as he develops and grows as a decision maker, facilitator, he's going to leave his feet a little bit less often, hopefully. He's also going to be more accurate, more precise as a passer, where instead of just hitting the body of his teammate, he's going to hopefully hit the shooting pocket. That'll be something that creates some more catch and shoot opportunities for his teammate, especially against better closeouts in the NBA. A little bit more precision will go a long way. I think that's one of the areas for Derik Queen where, hey, good passes are great passes are even better, and if he can really dial that in, and there are some definitely mixed in here as well. It's not that he hasn't thrown any all year long, but I think there's a lot more that he can definitely work with. That's a great example here of a touch pass out of zone against a zone look where he's able to generate a wide open look for his teammate, leads relocation well, and again, this is where the skill set, face-up game, look at him spray the ball out to the corner after drawing a double team on the drive. This is stuff that you're not typically seeing for bigs, especially not running the break, leading your team in transition. We talked about his transition finishing. Again, that's a pass right there. He doesn't hit the keyhole, ultimately leads to a miss and somewhat of a contested shot. If he starts hitting the doorknob and the keyhole a bit more on some of these passes, it's going to turn him from a good passer to a great one. And I think that's really the next step of his development as a playmaker, not only getting more comfortable making reads against certain kinds of defenses, but also just focusing on that accuracy and precision of his passing, because there's already a lot to love when it comes to his decision-making process, court mapping, and processing speed as a short roller, transition player, and facilitator of the basketball. When it comes to his defense, most people are going to talk about the fact that he is not your traditional rim protector, and that is completely true. He's not going to average 2.5 blocks per game in the NBA. He's not going to be one of the 3 best rim protectors in the world. Probably won't ever make all defense. I totally understand some of the concerns and questions around those limitations. But one thing he does quite well, in my opinion, is defend without fouling, specifically around the rim. And I think in these clips, you're going to see examples where he walls up, is able to get back on the glass as well, doesn't leave his feet prematurely, doesn't jeopardize rebounding positioning too often. Now, at times you will see him get active, still utilize that 9'1" standing reach to be an impact defender. Here he forces a travel with really smart positioning, doesn't bite on a Kasparas Jakučionis, ball fake, this time standing in a peel switch, tells his teammate to peel switch and makes the right play, walls up there, forces a miss. I think really the biggest thing is you're looking at someone who's going to be disciplined defensively, isn't going to foul too much, especially around the rim. And I think with how far the NBA has moved away from high volume post-up players, this is all you really need to see from the post defense category for Derik Queen. The competitiveness, the willingness to play straight up. He's basically the opposite of Jaren Jackson Jr. in a lot of ways. He's not as good as Jaren Jackson Jr. is defensively at the rim, but he's also not going to foul out of the game in 12 minutes like we've seen Jaren Jackson do before. So I think there's some real benefits to that. I think he competes on defense. I think his willingness to wall up, play within himself, and ultimately be a disciplined defender who's not going to jeopardize his foul count for the team is very, very beneficial, especially with how much of an offensive load prospect he projects to be going into the NBA. Part of what makes Derik Queen special, as you see him shut down a Cam Jones drive, is what he can do on the perimeter. Maryland was willing to switch him, and this is one of the benefits where he got to play alongside another big man who could really block shots in Julian Reese. So as a result, Derik Queen didn't have to always be at the rim, didn't have to always be the low man. Now, at times Maryland did use him in the zone in the middle. They tried to keep him at the rim when they could, but ultimately, Derik Queen showed off all year long that he can move those feet, he can get out on the perimeter and dance a bit with guards, and he did a pretty good job succeeding at that, limiting drives. I think ball contain, one of the most under-discussed elements of basketball, and especially if you have someone who can be a hybrid big man who is pretty good in ball contain, it becomes a unique cheat code where, again, we talked about earlier matchups. Yes, Derik Queen offensively is a huge mismatch for teams to try and deal with. At the same time, defensively, he's versatile enough to contest on the perimeter. Now, yes, some guys are going to be good enough to make shots over him, but again, he's going to defend without fouling for the most part. Does get whistled here, gets a little bit lazy with that reach in, but for the most part, the closeouts, the ball contain, the willingness to stay down on his 2 feet, he's not too jumpy, he's not going to risk his positioning for blocks. He's just going to force guys to make tough shots over him, and I think that's something you can live with consistently. Does a really great job challenging out on the perimeter, can make guys uncomfortable with his contests. One thing I really do love as well, and I think this most recent clip that we just saw here that I'm going to go back to is a very great example of it. Just plays with a high hand. Watch him close out here. He's going to get his hand up. This is what you want from a big trying to challenge out on the perimeter. He's maximizing his size, utilizing his standing reach and length to the best that he possibly can. While he's not super close to the shooter here, him getting a hand up is definitely going to impact this shot. Shooter fades away, forces a miss ultimately here in, again, a pretty close game in the second half. There's a lot of really great stuff Derik Queen did throughout the year defensively, but he does come with a couple limitations. I chose 2 clips I wanted to show. For the most part, you guys are going to get the message that I'm trying to convey through these 2 clips. Here he is in drop coverage, something, again, for Maryland, he didn't do a lot of this. And this is against a lottery pick level prospect in Kasparas Jakučionis for Illinois. Jakučionis comes off the screen, one of the more adept ball screen users in this entire draft class, picks the ball up a little prematurely. Now, Derik Queen tries to wall up, get his hands up in the passing lane, but as you can tell, he's not the biggest prospect. This is one of those things where, hey, the size limitations, especially in drop coverage, become very alarming. If he gets drafted to a team that wants to use him in drop all game long, he's not going to be an elite defender. He might not even be ever a plus defender because there are going to be some real flaws. Now, I think he can be an impactful defender because of his IQ, desire to actually compete and multiple efforts defensively, and then also his positioning and footwork defensively. I think there is some real juice there that he has to work with. And then this clip here, another great one. This is one where he's going to have to guard in the post, and we talked about how well he can wall up. The issue with walling up, if you're facing skilled players, sometimes they can just beat wall ups, and this is going to be a challenge for him as well. Facing against bigger bigs, if you're asking Derik Queen to actually guard other centers, if you're asking him to guard Zach Edey, for example, if you're facing off with Memphis tomorrow, or if you're going up against Kristaps Porzingis, who catches low in the post, or if you're going up against Nikola Jokic, who is still one of the high-volume post-up players in the league, or Ivica Zubac's another great example. Derik Queen will have some challenges with those guys because either their size at 7'3", 7'4" for Edey and Porzingis, or their touch in Zubac and Jokic will just outweigh what Queen can do defensively. So I do think the defensive limitations here in drop coverage are quite significant. Definitely something I needed to mention in this video. And then also you're looking at the concerns for him as a wall-up defender, just with his lack of true center size. He's not a true 7-footer. 6'10", definitely can play in the NBA, but it's not this elite defensive-minded big that you're hoping can anchor your team defense. So I do think if you're trying to imagine him positionally in the NBA, a hybrid big is definitely doable. He can spend 15 minutes a game playing center. He can spend 20 minutes a game playing the 4, or vice versa, right? He can maybe play 24 minutes at center in select matchups and 12 minutes at the 4. It really comes down to matchups. It comes down to your surrounding team context around him. One of the things I do really love about Derik Queen as a prospect at this point is the fact that in whatever team context he gets drafted, he'll have value. Can win in isolation, can win with his back to the basket, can win as a short roll screen setter, skilled enough to be a connector offensively. There's just so much to work with. He's going to be great in transition, and this is ultimately what's going to bring us to my shades of. Who am I comparing him to? And some people are going to freak out at this. So first of all, take a deep breath. Hear me out. These shades of are not just flat out comparisons. One of these guys is a former MVP that I'm going to compare him to. So take a deep breath. I'm not saying Derik Queen's going to win MVP. What I'm saying is there are some very similar nuances in their game that I could see Derik Queen kind of maximizing, playing into a little bit, and being similar to in certain ways. Those comparisons for me: Naz Reid of the Minnesota Timberwolves, Alperen Şengün of the Houston Rockets, Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers, and prospect Kevin Love coming out of UCLA. All 4 of these guys, I think, have subtle similarities to Derik Queen. I talked earlier about Kevin Love as a breakout passer, someone who can be a break starter in transition, rebounding, throwing hit-ahead passes. And if you remember early days Minnesota Timberwolves Kevin Love, this was a rebound hunting machine. And I think for Queen specifically, if you're looking at ways for him to be impactful, whether it's as the 4, like Love started his NBA career as, playing the 4 predominantly, whether it was next to Tristan Thompson in Cleveland or next to Nikola Pekovic in Minnesota, Kevin Love returned elite value on the offensive glass, returned elite value on the defensive boards, and obviously had some of that post skill to go to as well, something he did a ton early in his NBA career. I think Derik Queen, in some ways, very similar, where he has some of that positional versatility and brings some of that size, rebounding prowess to the power forward spot with the ability to throw some of those breakout passes. Then let's go to Naz Reid. We talked earlier about the bag work and Derik Queen's unique ability to handle the ball at his size, to play off the bounce, the unique gathers, the ability to hold driving lines. That's something Derik Queen, I feel like, is very reminiscent to of Naz Reid. Naz Reid can grab and go, can push in transition, can make plays. Just a very skilled player. They call him Big Jelly for a reason. He can get to certain spots on the floor with his handle. He can win in transition as a ball handler, and he can attack closeouts, finish around the rim. Very unique set of skills as a finisher around the rim because of his handle and his footwork. And I think Derik Queen, in a lot of ways, is reminiscent to that as well at times. Although I do think Naz Reid a little bit more fluid, especially now that he's slimmed down quite a bit for Minnesota compared to his LSU days. I think if Queen gets a little bit lighter even and gets a little bit quicker, can be even more similar to Naz Reid in a lot of ways. Now, I'm not comparing the shooting specifically. Naz Reid has a lightning fast release, really quick release, and someone who is an absolute flamethrower from behind the three-point line. I do think Naz Reid is significantly ahead of where Derik Queen projects to be as a shooter. But again, these are just subtle similarities. These are not full-blown comparisons. Alperen Şengün, I think his short roll playmaking, specifically what we've seen with Amen Thompson, can at times be very similar to what we've seen from Derik Queen. Some of those touch passes, some of the lively decision-making as a downhill catch-on-the-go player. I think there's some real similarities there as well. And then when it comes to Joel Embiid, I think there's more of that scoring out of the nail, playing out of the middle of the floor, some of that ability to really harness the middle of the court as a scoring threat. And Joel Embiid does that extremely well. We saw back when he was playing with James Harden and to a degree with Tyrese Maxey, playing in the short roll was utterly dominant for Joel Embiid, something that was almost unguardable for team defenses, especially as Embiid continued to grow as a decision maker, and his mid-range game got so good that he was unguardable, and if you did try and guard him closer, he would find a way to get to the free throw line. Remember, I told you I would talk about Derik Queen's free throw rate. I think Derik Queen has some significant star upside because of his ability to get to the free throw line. I think his handle helps him get there. I think his mid-range scoring touch helps him get there. His ability to play into traffic, play into contact, play balanced, initiate contact. And I know people won't like it. People are going to say, hey, the offense is initiating contact. Why is he getting that whistle? If you're out of position a little bit as the defender, it doesn't matter who initiates contact. And I think that's going to be a huge advantage for Derik Queen as well going into the NBA. I think he's going to get to the free throw line a good amount. And these are the 4 comps for me. Kevin Love out of UCLA, Alperen Şengün. Again, we talked about the differences. I think Şengün was a more skilled back to the basket player, more of the face-up game, but I'm really looking at the short roll passing as the Şengün comp. Then I'm looking at Nasri with the handle and Joel Embiid with some of that scoring out of the mid-range area where he likes to play. And you might be saying, oh my gosh, those are 4 really strong comparisons. Again, don't take it to complete heart. The shades of are just kind of loose ideas on how the player is going to play. But again, I do have Derik Queen ranked 3rd on my big board right now. He is a player who is, I think, a very good bet to have star potential in this year's draft. His ability to exploit mismatches, score from different spots on the floor, thrive out of short rolls, screen, make plays as a passer. There's so much value that you can extract in Derik Queen. I think he's a really safe bet regardless of where he lands. He can play alongside other bigs. He can play alongside shooting with his decision making and his scoring gravity in a variety of roles. And for that reason, I think Derik Queen's going to be an absolute home run pick for whoever gets him. He is going to probably stay 3rd on my big board the remainder of this draft process. And I really hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.